But listen, you guys don't want to know what I have to say about pirate software. I'm gonna be real. I've had my my takes about pirate software, and so much so that people were mad at me when I said what I had to say before. You feel me? But yeah, there was OnlyFans drama. What was the drama? Pirate software is the lamest dude to be named Thor. That's crazy. Okay. So if you don't know, Pirate Software is a Twitch streamer, very popular, very successful. I think he won an award at TwitchCon, Streamer Awards. Got very famous for his like YouTube shorts. His shorts popped off. He has a very deep voice. So that also helped. Became very successful. He joined up with Ludwig to be a part of Off-Brand Games as a producer or something like that. He got very famous for beating the all-time hype train record. Also known for, I think, did he buy his mods a house or something? It was weird. Not weird, but I just don't remember what it was. But anyway, he's a very beloved person on stream. So just know this. He's a very beloved person on stream. He's a very beloved creator is the point. He's a very beloved creator. And he apparently did a video talking to Asmongold. Ashes of Creation talking to Asmongold. And that made a lot of people upset. It's made a lot of people mad. He posted this video.
Hey, what's going on?
Right? 6.8K likes, 2.3K dislikes. Well, drama is a huge nothing burger. Okay, well, I want to know about that. But just tell me what that is. I feel like you can get mad at Hassan too if it's just associated with Asmon. Not necessarily, right? I think Hassan bringing Asmon on stream to, debate or talk about why the things that Asmongold said being a bad thing is a bit different than just doing regular content with Asmongold. You know what I mean? I think there's a difference there. There's a difference there. Right? But I'm also not necessarily in the camp of like, oh, if you do content with Asmongold, you should be canceled or whatever. But I will say, but regardless, if it's, I'm not like fully down with like guilt by association type beat. That's not the main issue. The reason why people are mad here is the same reason why people are mad or upset at Dream. I think it's the similar thing, right? You see, they have an audience who had an idea of you are supposedly supposed to be super positive and super open and accepting community, but you didn't do something that betrays that, open positivity to your audience, expecting your audience to be okay with it, and the audience is not okay with it, and then you're surprised about that, right? But in a very similar way, it's just that both Dream and Pirate Software don't understand the audience that they've created, right? They don't get it. And because they don't understand the audience that they've created, when they do something that betrays that audience, they're then surprised when that audience kind of like bites them. Because they don't understand what the audience is. He's the most white tech bro, nepo baby on the platform, to be honest. Well, he rebukes being called a nepo baby. That I do know. We covered that previously. We've covered Pirate Software before. Because I drew issue with Pirate Software, the way he covered, or the way he used like Palestine to clickbait. You remember that, chat? He made a YouTube short that was about like foreign countries or something. And then people were like, oh, this is about Palestine. He was like, haha, I got you. I purposefully didn't say the name that I was talking about, and you assumed it was about Palestine. It's not about that at all. It was actually about Russia. Haha, you have been fooled. That's what the take was. And like people were just like, that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. I have to see if I can try to find it. You said we made that up? No, I promise you. I promise you I am not making that up. It was a real thing that happened, and I talked about it on my stream, and I just can't find. I have the stream here. I just don't have the full VOD because the VOD was deleted. Here's the clip. Oh, you found it?
Excuse me?
Oh, I scrolled right past this, bro. I scrolled right past this one. I was almost clicked it too.
I don't give a shit about the geopolitics.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay, okay. Okay, okay, okay. Context. This is going to be at the start. If this becomes a video, which it might. Context. This is the video that we saw a little while ago that essentially had Pirate Software talking about politics. He doesn't usually talk about politics, but this is the one time where like he had addressed politics, and this video came out 7 months ago, right? And I'm gonna let it play, and then we're gonna talk about it.
I don't give a shit about the geopolitics. I'm not going to ever take sides in those because everyone loses in war. And the people involved did not choose to be born there. We all hit random on the character creator. We all spawned in different places we didn't choose. And I will never, ever segregate people in our community based on those things they did not choose. So your gotchas are worthless to me. I don't give a shit about them, and neither does anybody else in this community. And they never have. I don't give.
So, war is bad take. We don't surface level, but like whatever. This is more context as well. This was happening around the same time Creators for Palestine was going on, where a lot of big creators started talking about Palestine. A lot of big creators started to speak out about Palestine. And so, because of how vague in general this YouTube short was, a lot of people assumed he was talking about Palestine, right? Just to give you a date on this.
I don't give
that. This is May 28, 2024. People were talking about Palestine a lot. And so because of that, a lot of people thought that this was about Palestine. There's a clip from like 2 years earlier too. Yeah, there's a clip from like 2 years earlier. Dropping in this time, people are assuming that this is about Palestine. But Thor has assured us that it's not. He posts a comment and he says, "My favorite part about publishing this short was reading the comments of people immediately assuming that I support a conflict between Israel and Palestine in some fashion. From there is a lot of absurd narrative bending to make it appear like as though I am apathetic to the conflict or promote hatred through inaction. Except none of this has to do with Palestine or Israel. This short was made in response to a viewer berating me for having our games translated to Russian. This translation was made nearly 6 years ago, which was long before the major conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and before the sanctions are now in place. If you somehow are upset about this, then you may need to touch grass. I choose to run a community where people are encouraged to be creative and work with one another to better themselves. I choose to judge people as individuals based upon their personal actions and not those of the government or other members of their culture. This has always been the case and will always be the case. I would not diminish or segregate any member of my community based on any current ideological requirements. We're here to make games, improve our lives, and share experiences and work together, no matter who you are or where you're from. Anything less is gatekeeping bullshit for internet clout." So, he said a lot of words here, but it's pretty much what I established. It's literally him baiting people in by a very vague YouTube short about geopolitics in a time where everybody is talking about Palestine and then being surprised that people thought you were talking about Palestine, right? It's the ahaha. You thought I was talking about Palestine. I was actually talking about Russia and Ukraine. Maybe this is a problem for you, or at least it's a you problem instead. Like, no, people are going to assume you're talking about Israel-Palestine when you posted this, when every creator was talking about Israel-Palestine, right in the middle of the genocide of Palestinians, and it's a short from 2 years ago. Like, why else would you post this at this moment? Doesn't make any sense. And so that's the first thing that I saw from this person. I'm like, that's kind of weird, right? Like, it's one thing to be like, I'm against, no politics in my space. We just want to make games. But it's another thing to be like, ha ha ha, I've tricked you. You care about the human rights of Palestinians? Well, maybe you should touch some grass because you're just assuming that I don't care. And no, I will not give my actual take. No, I will not give my actual take about Palestinians. I'm just going to talk about how I've subverted your take about Palestinians or whatever. This is actually about Russia, Ukraine. I've gotten you. You've been fooled. You've been fooled by me. Yeah, he liked his own comment, which I get it. I'll do the same. That's how that read to me. And so that was the first thing I was like, that's weird. And then you apparently had, this is what Sarah said. This happening with Jason as well, potentially.
Me? Mashable, you can eat it. This is up. And that really pisses me off. I
Oh,
got a
is he
job
not he's not a nepo baby?
when I was 16 at Blizzard as a game tester for 6 months. I got that because my dad worked there for 23 years. My dad is a director of cinematic.
He's a director. That's what a f***ing nepo baby is. Are you kidding me? Like, I like this guy. Don't get me wrong. I like Pirate Software. That's what a nepo baby is. Do you know how hard it is to get a first job in tech? It's so gatekept to women, black people, people of color. Like in that order. I mean, that's so seriously. How do you have the audacity to turn on the goddamn camera? How can you be so out of touch?
Yeah, so Sarah was telling me that Jason had gotten death threats for this clip. He's not even wrong, right? He's not even wrong. He's not incorrect. But like he got
Chat, can somebody explain to me why more white guys get called nepo babies than people of color? I was born yesterday. I don't know.
So yeah. So there was that. There was the bait and switch thing. There was the nepo baby thing. There was the stop killing games controversy thing.
Hi, my name is Jay.
Right, where Pirate Software was like, "Oh, this reminds me of Pirate Software reminds me almost identically to Linus Tech Tips." Do you guys see that? Do y'all get the same vibe that I get from that? It's like they're identical. They're identical. Even down to like there being a grassroots initiative for a movement in the space that they're in, and them being like, I'm not gonna get involved in that. Actually, I think this is actually bad.
Me this and tried to get me to sign it. And I don't want to. Number one, I can't because I don't live in Europe. But number two, I wouldn't sign it even if I could. And I'm going to kind of go through this and try to explain the reasoning as to, first things first, what is an initiative? So an initiative is actually not law. It is something that you put together so you can put it up in front of representatives and they can start the conversation. The reason why I have a problem with Stop Killing Games is specifically it starts the wrong conversation. If we're trying to kill off the practice of developers putting together a live service game, pitching it as a single player experience, and then taking away support in the future, this ain't it. And the reason why is specifically on this initiative, under its own description, it says, this initiative calls to require publishers that sell or license video games to consumers in the European Union or related features and assets sold for video games they operate to leave said video games in a functional playable state. Specifically, the initiative seeks to prevent the remote disabling of video games by the publishers before providing reasonable means to continue functioning of said video games without the involvement from the side of the publisher. This isn't all.
This makes sense to me, right? He's claiming that this is the wrong conversation, but he's just against the conversation that is the one that this is having, which is why he won't sign it. And he won't say that because it makes him look bad. You know what I mean? He can't say that I'm actually against this as a game publisher or a game developer, right? Because this would require me to do more work, X, Y, or Z, or whatever his reasoning is, right? But if he can claim that like this addresses the wrong thing, that's why I don't support it, then he kind of gets like off scot-free. What the initiative is doing is not a bad thing. It's not. It's saying if you make a video game that people have to purchase or license, when you end support for that game must be functional. It has to be functional. It cannot just be a bundle of code, right? A piece of software that does nothing. It has to be functional. You have to be able to open it up and go into training mode. You have to go into a single player mode. It has to be something that is functional if you make a game that people have to buy. That is entirely reasonable. If I, as a consumer, enter into an agreement where I give you money and you give me an experience, a game, a piece of software, but then a year down the line, you can decide to break my piece of software for whatever reason, that is theft. In my opinion, you have now stolen from me. In the same way, if I buy a car, right? And in the agreement is that I keep the car, and a year down the road, you come and repossess my car without my knowledge, you have now broken the agreement. Right? It is still my car. I own that car, and you've just decided to come take it away because you no longer want to do maintenance on the car that I own. It's objectively good because it requires companies to uphold their promise, not just to throw people away. He's probably got this weird, I want to have no competition mindset that's tainted his vision of having on a critic. I'll play it.
always possible in all video games, and it doesn't call out the specific practice that this is supposedly trying to defeat. It is incredibly vague and will damage all live service games. How would you keep League of Legends in a functional, playable state? You'd have to...
They have a practice mode. League of Legends wouldn't be affected by this. And shout out Riot, because they actually made their practice mode functional. When I want to learn a new champion, I just go into the practice mode, I boot up with that champion with a team full of bots, 4 bots on my side, and then 5 bots on the enemy team, and I practice with the champion so I can practice using their abilities correctly. If I play support, I need to have somebody to support on, right? I go with an ADC to bottom lane against 2 other characters, and I practice, I see what's going on there, I test out the abilities just to see what's happening. If you want to practice jungling, that's a perfect example for that. You can practice your clears, practice your ganks, you feel me? Like, they've made a practice mode where you can play against AI. Even if I don't know if you do it if your internet's down, but if they end server for the game, it's still a functional playable game. The code is still there. The characters are still there. You can play there. You can play the game, right? If the servers that Riot shuts down, right? That's how League of Legends will continue. And that's all Stop Destroying Video Games, the initiative, is saying, right? All it's saying is that if you have, and again, League of Legends is free. It's not even covered under this because you are not selling or licensing it, right? Or you're not buying or licensing it. It's a free game. It's free. You don't have to pay any money for it. You're not buying it, right? So even then, it's not covered. But even in this free game, they still have tools that allow the game to exist in a playable state once service shuts down. I'm so tired of people who don't actually support the change that's needed, trying to latch onto and narrow the changes for their own profit. That's exactly what he's doing. That is exactly what he's doing, yeah. He's saying this doesn't solve what it's intending to solve, but he disagrees with what it's intending to solve. It's not that stop killing games or stop destroying games doesn't solve what it's intending to solve. It's that he doesn't agree with what it's trying to do. He understands it, he doesn't agree with it, and he's trying to refocus the conversation away from something he doesn't agree with. That's what's happening here.
To re-architect the entire game. The game is what is called client-server. So in client-server models, there's a server and there's a client, and all of the math, all of the game, everything happens on the server. The client just displays it. And the reason we want to do it that way is so that you can't teleport around and do 1 billion damage. You don't trust the client. You trust the server. The client just displays what it's told, right? So if we wanted to re-architect this, we'd have to take all of that server logic, push it back out into the client, and somehow make that playable in a multiplayer-only video game. That doesn't make sense.
Well, it's not multiplayer only. He's objectively wrong. Even at the time of making this video, before they had revamped the practice tool, it also wasn't multiplayer only. You can still go into the practice mode and mess around with champions. That's all people are asking for. They're not asking for you to be able to do peer-to-peer connection to 10 other people and then also have anti-cheat and then also have, handling everything off client side. They just want either a playable single player, right, mode, some single player mode. A training mode can work. For freaking Street Fighter 6, if you can't play online, you can go into the lab and you can practice your combos in the lab. That's all that's needed, right? That, or allowing private servers. If you don't want to have any single player mode, which I would argue you'd be hard pressed to find a game that doesn't have a single player mode, right? This specific initiative is only to address the few games that don't, like The Crew, where if you opened up The Crew in 2025 now, and you clicked the title screen button to start it, nothing happens. It will kick you back out. You can't even just drive around in the game that you own, right? All they have to do for The Crew is just have a client, a singular driving map, right? That you can drive around to as a single, that's all. Literally, that's it. One map that sits on the client side that is single player that you can just drive around. That is literally, that's it. That is a functional game. That is a playable game. Nobody's asking for you to do like some robust AI system that has like GTA style pedestrian driving or whatever. They just want to be able to play the game that they've bought.
All games. And it's really easy to say like, oh, that'll get worked out down the line. But we're dealing with government here. If we're going to be putting up these types of ideas specifically in front of government, we need to be calling out the right issues, especially if you don't have precedent.
Okay, this is what makes me mad. He just disagrees with the issue. That's the problem. The problem is not that it's not calling out the right issue. He just disagrees with the issue that it's calling out. And he won't say it. He won't say that he disagrees with the issue that's being called out, right? He's just saying, well, this doesn't address what actually should be addressed because I know best. I'm Pirate Software. Don't you know I have 2 million followers? 2 million subscribers on YouTube? People give me a bunch of money. I know best, right? That's what he's doing. He's literally doing, I know best, and because I know best, I know that this is not a good thing, or this is not the right issue to call out, therefore it's bad. But again, he won't say that he disagrees with the actual issue, right? Because it will make him look bad if he says what he actually believes, which is, I don't think games should be forced to make their game playable after, the server shutdown or after support ends. For whatever reason, it's too much work or whatever.
Because now you're going to be setting precedent on something that doesn't make any sense with people that may not understand the nuance of our industry, all in the name of specific cases they've called out that are egregious, and they have one. It's The Crew. So action on The Crew. The video game The Crew, published by Ubisoft, was recently destroyed for all players and had a player base of at least 12 million people. Due to the game's size and France's strong consumer protection laws, this represents one of the best opportunities to hold a publisher accountable for this action. If we're successful in charges being pressed against Ubisoft, this can have a ripple effect on the video games industry to prevent publishers from destroying more games. First off, I don't like the idea in this that it has a player base of 12 million people. That is not how...
What? How? What? I don't like the idea of facts, actually.
I don't like the idea of facts. Me neither, Pirate Software. Showing through his second puberty, now he sounds like a cartoon character.
How long-running games work. There is a large number of people that buy the game, and that player base slowly dwindles off until nobody is playing it anymore. If there's any costs associated with keeping the game online, which this was an online video game, then eventually it costs more to keep it online than it does to keep running it, right? So the cost outweighs the amount of income for it.
That's still 12 million people who have purchased the game that can no longer play the game. Like, I'm sorry, sometimes I reinstall an old game just to play it again. And you know what? It's my gosh darn right to do so as an American. It's my right. It's my right. I bought that gosh darn game with my hard-earned Chick-fil-A money. And if I want to play Dark Souls 3 again, you bet your bottom dollar I should have the ability to play Dark Souls 3 again. If I want to play Minecraft again, you bet your bottom dollar I should be allowed to play Minecraft again. I don't think that me purchasing a game that I had the notion that I was going to own for the rest of my life, just for 5 years down the line, the company can pull the plug on and my game no longer works. And if they're going to do that, they should provide to me a way for me to play the game that I rightfully own. If I buy a car from somebody, right, and they show up a year later and they take my tires off, they should provide me with new tires because I bought the car with the tires on them. So it's either they give me a new car, they give me my tires back, or they give me new tires. Or if I'm going to be very charitable to them, they give me a voucher so I can buy my own tires again. That's it. But the tires are rightfully mine. I own them. And I have a right to to use my tires on the car that I bought.
There are bad business practices that can occur in there. There are companies that will sell a online-only game as a single-player experience and kind of just put it into the TOS and hide it. But not all companies do that. When they do,
it doesn't matter. That's my point. And this is what I don't think Pirate Software understands. This is what your mind does on capitalism, right? This is what capitalism does to your brain. That's inherently unethical. Not just selling a live service game as a single player experience. A game that I purchase that I can no longer play for whatever reason is unethical. You selling me something and then not allowing that thing that I bought with the expectation that it would work to work in the future is unethical. It is. That is an unethical system. I rightfully own that game. I have bought that game. And because I have bought that game and I rightfully own that game and that game is mine, I have a right to play that game. It is now my game. And you shutting down services without providing any alternatives, rendering my game inoperable, is immoral and should be illegal. That is what Stop Killing Games is about. That's it. That's the answer. That is what Stop Killing Games is about. And it makes sense to me. Makes a lot of sense to me.
We should be calling out that specific company, not all companies. So let's take a look at this and find out more about the Crew itself. If we pull up their Wikipedia, we can see that the Crew was actually created in 2014, which, much to the hatred of all of us oldies on the internet, was 10 years ago. Oh. So this was an online-only racing video game developed by Ubisoft Ivory Tower and Ubisoft Reflections and published by Ubisoft. So all Ubisoft, right? With that in mind, it said it was a scaled-down recreation of the contiguous United States and included both role-playing and large-scale multiplayer elements. So it had a massive multiplayer component to it. It is an online-only service-based game. And they shut it down 10 years later. On March 31st, 2024, Ubisoft shut down the game's servers, rendering the game unplayable, which is normal for live service games.
And that's inherently unethical. That's where we differ. Pirate Software thinks that's not only fine, but good. I think that's unethical. That is a bad thing. I purchased a game. I have a right to play that game whenever I want, however I want, so long as it's not impeding on other people's gameplay experiences. I don't think you can cheat in an online game and get away with it just because you own the game, because you are now impeding on other people's gameplay experiences. But if I were to wake up when I'm 99 years old and want to boot up the Crew one last time before I die, you better gosh darn believe that I have a right to do so. You better gosh darn believe it. It's my God-given American right to do so. I don't want to play the Crew 2. I don't want to play the Crew Motorfest. I want to play the Crew 1 2014. And I should be my right to open up the Crew 1 2014 and drive around in it. It should be a game that is operable. I should be able to play the game in some way, in some fashion. I'm not saying, and nobody is saying, that you should have to recreate the entire multiplayer component for the single player world, right? But I am saying that there should be some elements of the game, something there for me to play when I am not connected to the internet or when the game service shuts down.
The only thing that I can see in here that could be a problem is if they post it as not an online-only experience. But everything that I found online shows that the game was always marketed as online only. If you're going to be buying an online-only game,
doesn't matter. I think the idea of online only is unethical as well.
It can only run when it's online. And if the servers need to
do that, okay, then perfect. Seems better than whatever Pirate Software is talking about.
Shut down in the future, far in the future, it makes sense to me for the access to that game to be cut if it's online only. If it's a single player experience that has online only functionality specifically just to shut down the game in the future and the online only doesn't actually add any gameplay functionality, I'd agree with you. That's a shitty business practice, but that's really rare. And in the specific cases where it does happen, we should call out that, not just all games and not all live service games. Further, there's more context to this too. The Crew itself came out in 2014, but it actually had a sequel that came out in 2018. And
don't care. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Doesn't matter. I have a right to play the Crew 1, a game that I bought.
Then it had another sequel that came out.
Don't care, doesn't matter. I have a right to play The Crew 1, a game that I bought. In my opinion, if a game or movie or whatever is not being sold by the original sellers as creator, then it shouldn't be protected by copyright anymore. I'm down with that, honestly.
Out in 2023. And if we go to The Crew's SteamDB, which again is not going to be all of the player base for this, it's only going to show the ones who were playing it through Steam. It was on multiple platforms. We look at the max here. It did start out with a sizable amount of community, and then it degraded. And it had a major drop-off in 2018.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There's one person playing The Crew right now. That person should be allowed to play the game. That person is one person in game, should be allowed to boot up a single player only racetrack map and should be allowed to drive around on a game that they bought. I'll stand on that.
Which is the same year that it launched a sequel. This is normal. When a sequel comes out, a lot of the player base, if the sequel doesn't suck, will move over to it. And then the servers effectively die.
Doesn't matter.
You can't run a live service game on this few players. You can't.
Nobody is saying that they have to. That's the craziest part. Nobody is saying that you have to keep the servers running for one person. Nobody is saying that. Literally 0 people are arguing for that. None. Not a single person is arguing for that. What they are saying is that that one person should be able to play some aspect of the game that they've bought. Or you provide access to private servers that they can play on. Like, this is an anti-piracy take. It's also an anti-game preservation take, right? Also an anti-game preservation take, right? Because if you can't play a game after service ends for it, the game is not preserved.
Most of the time, especially not if there's anything else that goes into it. And if we go into that anything else, and we could see that there was license problems. So on December 14th, 2023, Ubisoft delisted The Crew and its expansions from digital platforms, suspended sales of
It
microtransactions,
should also be illegal. That's just me, though.
and announced that the game's servers would shut down on March 31st. So they gave them 3 months. Usually I would say, hey, 6 months is probably a better deal, but if they're going to do 3 months, they're going to do 3 months. The only thing that I'd be interested outside of that is if there was a contractual obligation to do more than 3 months and they didn't follow it, if it was in the terms of service or not. Citing upcoming server infrastructure and licensing constraints. What were those licensing constraints? Well, it turns out that all of the cars in the game were licensed from the car companies. And a 10-year running game likely means that they had license to them for 10 years. And that means that it would likely reopen.
Don't care, not my problem. That's my response. Don't care, not my problem. It's not my problem to worry about your licensing constraints, right? It's also not my problem you didn't tell anybody about those licensing constraints. You feel me? I paid for the game. I should be able to play the game. And again, nobody is saying you have to run the servers in perpetuity. What people are saying is that you should allow them just one game mode, a single game mode that allows them to drive around in an empty parking lot. That's literally all you need to do. That is the lowest bar to clear. You have to make an empty white void map, like the hyperbolic time chamber type map, and then allow somebody to drive around in that offline. That's it. That's literally it. That's all. That is all. But apparently that's too much for pirate software.
And for
It just
negotiation.
needs to have a playable, it just needs to be playable, right? It needs to be a thing where you press the start button, it, right, spins up, tries to connect to the server, fails, opens up the white void. And you can drive around with the cars in the white void to your heart's content. We haven't even gotten to that part yet, but we'll finish up this part.
Now, understand that's speculation, but I've seen this type of a deal many times in the industry while I've been working in it. So it's not unlikely. If you're going to have to renegotiate on a game that has so few players and is not turning a profit anymore, you're probably just going to forego the renegotiation. And if those servers are aging, you're not going to want to recreate that infrastructure. And there are some people that'll say, well, just make it all single player. Well, I've explained that doesn't make any sense in the first place. If you're making it all single player, you'd have to carve off all of that, and it's developer time and money. When you already
Literally not even true. You just need one map that people can drive cars in. That's literally it. Yes, okay, you put 5 people on the development team to create a a white void that has a ground plane that people can drive on. That's it. I don't understand how that's a crazy take. You don't have to make the entire game single player. You have to make a single player aspect to the game.
Anyway, it makes more sense to just move on. I don't find that to be a problem from the developer perspective, and I understand that people find that to be a problem from the player perspective. Ideologies. And that's okay to have two different ideologies. I just won't agree with it because I understand the burden that puts if we raise that problem in the way that we are right now. If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not want to run one at all, then no one's going to run.
That's not what anybody is saying. And this is my problem with Pirate Software. He does shit like this all the time. He does shit like this literally all the time. Just purposefully misunderstanding what people are saying, right? Either because he doesn't want to engage with the actual argument because it'll make him look bad, or he's actually just misunderstanding what people are saying because, yeah, he's being obtuse. And that kind of leads into the discussion that we're having today. And that is about Pirate Software collaborating with Asmongold. That's how we got here an hour ago. Pirate Software is collaborating or made a video with Asmongold like 2 days ago. Right? Or yesterday. And this made a lot of people mad. This made a lot of people upset. And in response to people being upset about this, he said, if you're upset over something political, then you should know by now that I don't allow political soapboxing or statements in our community. The video is about two people that play MMOs talking about an upcoming MMO. If you want to talk about it more than that, I don't know what to tell you. Right? So this person said, fuck off, you cowardly, amoral arsehole. No politics, please, is an excuse to be pals with somebody who expresses bigoted beliefs all the time, calling Palestinians an inferior race, and calls women he finds unattractive hogs. Women and minorities aren't safe in your community. And then apparently Pirate Software blocked this person. He then responded on Twitter. He responded on Twitter saying, a lot of people are mad that I talked to @Asmongold recently about Ashes of Creation. I can see all of your comments, messages about this through YouTube and here on Twitter. In this instance, another creator has made a disparaging video about the game, and Asmon did not have enough game knowledge to talk about it because he didn't have a chance to play it. This immediately makes the audience have a negative opinion of something with nobody there to say otherwise. Oh, he's doing only one side of the story was allowed, so this is why you need Asmongold to talk about it, or whatever. I worked 500 hours in the game and refuted the video by making maybe the other creator. As Asmon's channel was the flashpoint for this, it made sense to talk to him about the situation. It was clear the air of bullshit. We did this live on Twitch the same day it happened. In the internet of today, you don't say something and then the room is filled up with people who do. I choose to help set the record straight on this, and I'm glad to have done so. If you want to cancel me for talking to him, that's fine, but I would do this again given the chance. Developers don't deserve unwarranted hate. You could have made a video of your own and mentioned Asmongold. Actively defending Asmon without acknowledging why people are upset by your choice to collab with him is extremely disappointing. This is what you're defending. I mean, all this in the context of defending a decision to make a video with him. If Hitler defends your favorite game developers, people would rightfully be upset if you made a video with him. Also, I know we don't go further, you disagree with me, so you're evil and wrong. However, it hurts to see someone you look up to side with somebody so hateful. It hurts even more seeing it defended. Be this conversation because someone should at me if Pirate responds, he won't, I'm coping. Pirate's not the wholesome person people think that he is, to be honest. Yeah, that's my take. I don't really care to take down Pirate Software or whatever. I've never been a fan of him. I've talked about it extensively why I wasn't a fan of him. For the bait and switch take about Palestinians. His denial of being a nepo baby when he kind of very clearly is. I don't really care about that though. His stop killing games thing where he had a bad take on this. Right? There's a perception of him, and I think he got a lot of play because he got very successful. And the streaming ecosystem is built on a kingmaker system. So people think that when you are successful, you are therefore a good person deserving of defending or being defended. And because he grew so fastly or so quickly, so organically, separate from an adherence to a specific streaming, another big streamer, there's an organic audience that any other streamer could benefit from being a part of, right? And because they can benefit from being a part of it, he gets a big pass or a lot of passes when it comes to his bad takes because nobody wants to upset a potential audience that they could potentially have access to. If that makes sense. I think people took his growth as some sort of proof that he knows what he's doing when it was just luck. Yeah. I'm not saying he's like, I don't want to discount his like success. He's very successful. He uses YouTube Shorts very well. He's very good at clipping out parts of his streams. But he does, and that's the reason why I think he gets a lot of passes. He gets a lot of passes because he's successful and because nobody wants to upset somebody who's on the come up, right? Like imagine 4 years ago dissing Kai Cenat. Imagine 4 years ago dissing Kai Cenat and getting on Kai Cenat's bad side. Now Kai is the largest streamer in the world, and you now if you dissed him and you publicly started problems with him, you've now alienated such a large audience that you could have had access to. And I think streamers, and this is the concept that I was talking about as well, call it the thin purple line, right? This is why streamers have a level of solidarity with each other, because if you make yourself a pariah, if you call out other streamers, if you make yourself, you get in the woods with, or in the mud with drama and stuff, you may potentially limit your growth and alienate yourself from the wider streaming landscape. And a lot of people just don't want to do that. And so they end up allowing a lot of, reprehensible behavior from other streamers as well, right? So Pirate Software is not going to be canceled by other streamers. Pirate Software is most likely going to be defended by other streamers. You know what I mean? Like even streamers who like may have spoken out against Asmongold are going to defend Pirate Software for like talking with Asmon or whatever. Right? But where he messed up is the same way that Dream messed up, and that's not understanding his audience. When you've built an audience that's supposed to be apolitical and no politics or whatever, and you have a conversation with Asmongold, who very much expressly is political, and is like negatively polarized in a lot of certain ways, your audience that you've built to be anti-politics is going to be against it. Oh, he's not being defended for getting people killed in hardcore WoW. I want to see that. I want to see kind of, because that sounds funny to me. No offense, I know people love hardcore WoW or whatever, but that sounds hilarious. Was he like, all right, guys, everybody run into the boss? And everybody ran into the boss, he didn't go, and he got everybody killed? That'd be funny. I also wanted to show you guys this.
It's PC. You got to choose a side. And I'm like, I'm just going to not talk about politics, right? Like, because like, my whole thing is I want you guys to be creative. I want you to make things, and I want to show people that they have the capacity to do so. And I find more often than not in today's world, people just need to be told that they're allowed to be creative more than anything else. Like they've worked everything out. They know exactly what they want to do. They just need someone to say yes. And like none of that other shit matters. It just gets in the way of that. If you're constantly
and if I want to get into what my real beef with Pirate Software is, right? And this is probably the meanest I'm gonna get in this discussion. His whole just be creative, just makes games is fake as fuck, if I'm being real. If it's removed from politics. Because I have that same take. I have the take that I believe in my heart of hearts, everybody is a creative. Everybody, given the opportunity, will make something. Right? That's the reason why I believe, or I'm anti-capitalist, right? I believe in systems like socialism or communism or whatever, right? Because I believe that if you give people and you fix their material conditions, you allow them a chance to grow and build the art that they want to build. And you are never going to do that, right? They will never do that when they are bogged down by the systems of capitalism. Any take that is about just be creative, just make games, just be artful, right? That is removed from the discussion that people can't do that under capitalism. Not everybody has their first job at 16 by their daddy working at Blizzard for 23 years or whatever. You feel me? Some people grow up with nothing, right? Some people have something and then lose everything. Some people are homeless. Some people have to work dead-end jobs, 3 jobs to take care of their family. Not everybody can just be creative. It's not as simple as just be creative, right? So you have this idea, and it sounds good, doesn't it? It sounds super sweet and awesome, and it makes you feel warm and bubbly inside when he just says, just make games. Yeah, just make games with what time? Just be creative. Yeah, just be creative with what time? I think given the opportunity, everybody would be creative. They'd make games, they'd write books, they make comics, they'd sing, they dance, they draw, they color, they'll paint. Given the opportunity, everybody would be creative. But their first goal is to fix their material conditions. It's very hard to be motivated to be creative when you have to worry about, paying your bills. It's very difficult to be creative when you have to worry about whether or not your kids are going to eat next week. That's why I think his whole be creative thing is fake as fuck. It's so fake. Because you can't just be creative, or you can't tell people to just be creative separate from politics. Because that's the reason why I do what I do. That's the reason why I talk about what I talk about. That's the reason why I advocate for what I advocate for. I actually believe what he says. I look at people, I look at the potential of humanity, and I say, I want them to thrive. I want them to thrive. Everybody, given the opportunity, can thrive. You just don't care to give them the opportunity. And that's what makes me mad. That's what pisses me off.